Hi, my name is Craig O'Brien. I'm one of the pastors with Origin Church here in Vancouver. I'm so glad you've joined us for our house church sessions. This is our training for house church hosts, and in this session, we deal with why online house church matters to us, and reasons why you can actually host an online house church gathering. Uh, we know that the church it's really Jesus's church. It's not ours. It's not some brand or denomination or network. The church actually belongs to Jesus. Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. In fact, when we come to hosting an online church, we're actually hosting the church that is actually Jesus's, a gathering of people, an assembly of people that are truly His, whether that's online or in a living room of a home or even in a building outside or an outside gathering. So we want to share with you some reasons why you can be a house church host and why it matters to us. The first is that for our congregation, we had been focused on universities and colleges in cities, and particularly here in Vancouver. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, we found that we had to redesign our ministry design and our mission plan. And so part of the press of the pandemic is that it divided us up and pushed us out back into our homes. And so we know that the experience of the church is both gathered and scattered. But we were finding that the divide that was created under the lockdown and the limitations that we had actually limited our experience of the church. And so we wanted to respond to that and change and do some things that would actually keep church live and engaged with people. And one of the parts of that is that we know the digital divide exists all the time between people in our world today, that family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, and even the community may not actually always be building great and deep face-to-face relationships, and there is a social divide there, but there can also be a digital divide. And so we've always had the option of dealing with the social divide by getting close and personal with others. But during this pandemic season, we felt the press of being more divided. And so people actually may feel more lonely, more isolated, and more separated. So our house church hosts actually are the kind of people who can bridge that digital divide. There's some reasons why we find this to be so important and perhaps even difficult in our societal patterns these days. In the first century, as the church was birthed there in Jerusalem, they had this ready-made mix of social spaces that they moved in between. And so it says in Acts 2 about the church that every day they continued to meet together in temple courts, and then they broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Now, I love the Acts 2 church picture that's there and this movement of different spaces from the temple to meeting in homes. And I think the home experience of church was really, really important. And so we're really thankful for our house church hosts, people who are willing to say that they will create maybe not just a space in their living room, literally, but they'll create a space in a digital living room so that we can bridge the digital divide as the Church of Jesus. The second thing that we know and find to be really important in this time is that in this rhythm of being church gathered and scattered, that we've often spoken of going to church. I'm going to go to church and I want to go and be with the church. And that's been difficult in this season. but we know that church is better together. And so we are thankful because house church hosts create the space and climate where we can do church together. It's a space where we get to begin to live out the one another's that are in the scripture. The 23 commands in the New Testament that speak of how we are to love one another, encourage one another, teach one another, pray for one another. In fact, in Hebrews 10, the writer there says, let us consider how we may spur one another on to love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. And so this need that exists even in the life of the early churches was that they would encourage one another to keep gathering together. And there's no time like now where our patterns and sense of what's allowable and even safe demands that we still gather together, but we make use of the technology and the smaller spaces available to us. And so we want to do that. We want to encourage you to keep this always in mind, that church is better together. And so how will you, as a house church host, create that space and then encourage others to keep gathering? And the third thing that makes the house church host such a beautiful thing is that we know Jesus is with us. Jesus has promised always that he is with us. In fact, he called the first disciples that they might be with him. And then at the end of his ministry, as he was commissioning them into this kingdom life, he says, surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Jesus assured his disciples that he would be with them. In fact, when Jesus wanted to speak of the ministry and cast a vision of the church and how it would bind up or it would release, and he was speaking of that movement and sort of power in the life of the church, he promised that even in the smallest gathering, he was present. Notice what he says in Matthew 18. He says again, truly I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where two or three gather in my name, there am I with them. And so the house church host gets to really leverage and lean into this promise that Jesus is with us. And when we gather in his name, indeed, he is there with us in our prayer and in our agreement and seeking with him in the work of the Spirit and the communion of the Father and the Son, that we would be seeking for his will to be done among us. Now I'm going to invite you into the first breakout. And in this breakout session, I'd like you to take the assigned questions and discuss and reflect on these.